Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel in which I talk about whatever I like, and for some reason people are subscribing. I really appreciate that. We're almost at 25 subscribers and almost at 100 watch hours, which, considering I don't like to hear myself talk, that is pretty impressive. So I thank y'all very much for choosing to follow me. I hope I can slowly up my quality of content, and let's just get into what I was thinking about today. I actually had a couple of topics, but I decided since my 75-gallon tank is doing pretty good, I wanted to talk a little bit about that tank in particular. I have talked about fish in the past, but I want to talk about how I started setting it up, the methods, that sort of thing, because I also want to be able to go back to this forum I posted on and give them a quick update. And I figured they might appreciate if the actual talking is related to fish and not just whatever thoughts I have going on in my head. So, we purchased the 75-gallon tank secondhand for about 150 bucks, and the guy even delivered it for us, which was super nice. We don't have a car that's big enough for carrying the tank, and we live in Philadelphia, and apparently the day we were going to get it was just every single truck for rent was not available, which was very bizarre to me because I've never had that sort of problem before. But when you have to drive 30 minutes out city time to get a tank and bring it back, that's of course when they're going to make it all out. So I ended up paying a little extra money for them to deliver it, and that was incredibly kind of them. It came with a light and some decorations and a really big piece of driftwood that I was excited about. But I wanted to do the a low tech method, so not a high tech light, not a lot of carbon dioxide going in, that sort of thing, not the really expensive like fluval substrate. I wanted to go dirt, sand, plants, sponge filter, and heater, because tropical fish, most of the common fish available are tropical fish and they require heaters. Well, I started with everything. I did a lot of research into what's known as the Wallstead method, because the writer of this book about low planted tanks, her name is Diana Wallstead, and she put all of this information together and has been doing fish tanks for years, and actually still is able to be communicated with on the forum, which is always super nice. I am definitely someone who loves to share information. So seeing this person who is so well respected in the fish keeping community and basically has an entire method of fish keeping named after her be so available and actually talk to me and give me advice on this forum was just a little overwhelming. I think the first time I got a reply from her, I literally squeaked and told my Briar, and Briar's just like, "Oh, that's really cool," in the way that, someone who is interested in what you're doing, if not, well, interested in you, if not necessarily knowledgeable about what you're doing, will like listen to you with the blank look and the smile and just like, "I'm just happy that you're happy." That is good. um so at first everything was going well. I was trying not to buy everything at once and mostly use my um, dog grooming tips, but that got a little out of hand anyway, because I have an addictive personality, and fish tanks are one of those things that I have known for a while I really love to do. But I still tried really hard to keep a handle on myself, try to use mostly what was brought with me, even though when I had done research, I was concerned about the light being able to reach the deepest parts as needed. We actually went on a 3 hour long trip just around the city and outside into the suburbs to try and find a local fish store, because I decided I didn't really want to support the big boxes if we didn't have to, just from personal experience of working with PetSmart. Every big box store is different. I'm aware of that. But me personally, knowing where they get their fish from, it's not okay, not where they get their fish from, because a lot of the smaller stores will get their fish from the same place. It's more how the fish are then taken care of. I should say that. So, like, we went to all of these different places. There was one fish store that was really cool for uh, saltwater, but I'm not interested in saltwater. Never. Was just starting with the fact that it's so much more expensive, but maybe one day I'll get into like the corals and stuff, but let's not put that let's not actually put that in the universe. Let's leave that away. But we ended up finding this place called Cuboid Nature Aquarium out in La Hosca. And it's in a cute little village area. It reminded Briar and me of a couple places in Huntsville that we loved to visit. Um, but it's a great little place. Harvey is a fantastic man. And even though it's like an hour drive from where we live in West Philly, we've ended up going to him for pretty much everything. Admittedly, I still go to some of the local places to just get chemicals and stuff if I suddenly run out. But he helped me with a lot of the plant stuff, figuring out what plants to get, and I was really excited putting everything in and just kind of watched my tank fell. The ammonia went up to like past what my liquid test could detect. It was extremely dark green, and we weren't doing a fish in method, so no fish were harmed in this. Um, and I just did water changes every day. I didn't have a system, so I had to use a bucket to do like 50% as much as I could carry until my arms were sore. And meanwhile, I was still dog grooming, so I was like very tired. Um, we got the levels down finally, and we decided the first fish we would get would be a wild type of beta. And at the same time, we had noticed that some of the moss that we'd gotten from someone local that wasn't cuboid had some fry, so we'd had these little tiny rainbow fish for a while. I really thought that they were going to be the scarlet baddies because that's what the guy had said initially, but posting pictures of them and videos of them online people told me that they are likely some sort of blue-eyed rainbow fish. So we finally got our wild type betas after the ammonia had been under control. And don't ask me how those fry survived with the ammonia so high. They were tough little guys. And we brought them home. And the plants were struggling a bit. And that was frustrating to me. And one day the fry just disappeared. Briar and I realized that our wild type betas had eaten them, which was sad, but well, it happens sometimes. And they were very small, and I hadn't thought about it because these weren't beta splendines, they were a different variety. So I thought, and I'd been reading on them, and I've been told that they would be very peaceful in a community tank. But that ended up not working out. And as things continued, I kept watching the leaves on my plants kind of melt away, and some of the moss was starting to die. So I was just like, okay, something needs to give. Talked to people online. They mentioned pulling out the driftwood. Talked to Harvey. He mentioned bumping up the light to something better. So I ended up putting down about $400 or $500 for a twin star, which is a different type of light, far more powerful. I donated my old light so that it could go to a school in the future, someone that's not necessarily going to need a lot of light going so deep. And we ended up removing the driftwood. There were two chunks, one chunk that we bought, one chunk that had come with the tank. So we still have the first chunk because my hope is to eventually have a discus fish tank, and I want that in there. And the other one is in a completely different tank that one day I'll take pictures of, and everything seems to be going really well in that tank. Lots of plants, lots of life. The fish like to hide behind it because, of course, they do. So I don't get to take very many videos of them, but we'll see how things keep going in that tank, and I'll take some photos and stuff as the fish get more used to things and things start growing in. So everything's been taken out, rearranged. I got more plants. I really lucked out with someone off of Reddit who was trying to give away just a clump of stems, just something I could separate onto my 3 different tanks and growing really well. I also got some stuff from a website, Dustin's Fish Tanks, as well as just every time we go to Cuboid, I start hoarding the plants and collecting them for myself. And things started improving. With the new light, there's been a lot of new growth. I've noticed that some of the plants have been growing to the surface and are turning red at the tips, which is a really good sign that they're getting enough light. There's, of course, still some stuff that isn't too great. I'm still learning how to take care of the plant's needs. But in the meantime, we've started stocking up with fish, and there's been casualties just due to my own stupidity mostly, I think, where I wasn't paying enough attention to the ammonia levels or the stress levels that were going on. Or there was a while where the dirt underneath had kind of been releasing sulfur bubbles, but I'm on top of that now because I didn't have the patience or the space really in the apartment that we live in to really properly sift through the dirt and make it more fish tank friendly. Not having a problem with the other 2 tanks, just the big one. And that seems to be going away now. So we lost our first betas. Not a huge surprise considering they survived the dark days in the beginning. We then purchased some rummy nose tetras, 12, because I will never purchase a schooling fish unless than amount of 6, unless there's some very special circumstances. And the rummy nose just disappeared. Like, this is before we pulled the driftwood out. And when I pulled the driftwood out, I poked around. I looked in every corner. I even went through the substrate as well as I could, and I could not find them anywhere. So the working theory on that is aliens took them. We've had some shrimp disappear, though we still have several bamboo and a mono shrimp and a couple little guys that got saved from a Skittle bowl that went poorly. Let's see. So we ended up getting more rummy nose and some albino tiger barbs. Are they tiger barbs? Oh God, I can't remember. My brain is fuzzy. We got some, I call them lemon lime tetras. They're green little tetras. They're very cute and speedy. We ended up choosing for the bottom of the tank a mixture of, wow, my brain is dumb. We've actually got the biggest species of Cory catfish available, and we got 6 of them, and they are fantastic. They hide really well now that the plants are really growing in, and then they'll just appear because they decide they want to go at the back of the tank for some reason. It's really funny. We also decided for our big fish, our sort of centerpiece, to get a school of pearl gouramis, and they're hilarious. When I walk by or I'm popping popcorn, they will start to follow me because they think I'm going to give them food. And when I am feeding them, they'll actually eat from my fingers, and I can feel them bump against my hand because I'm sticking my hand real down deep so that I can make sure the tube worm cubes are dissolving properly and no one's able to just take a huge chunk and leave. We've also gotten a really fat, big old beautiful dark green tiger barb with a bright red nose and on the edges of fins and on his throat. So he's just a gorgeous guy, and his story is he is from a breeder that's Harvey's neighbor, who decided that he was done breeding tiger barbs and gave all of these fish over to Harvey. And this dark green boy is the only one of his exact species and coloration. So when I was talking to Harvey, because he's had these guys for a little bit, we only go once a month. So he's been keeping an eye on him, and he was like, yeah, no, he doesn't school with anybody. He likes to be by himself, it seems. And this isn't a tank full of other barbs, so he wasn't by himself, but he didn't really like anybody else in the tank. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and take him. We'll see how he handles my fish, because I have a bunch of smaller schooling fish and the pearl gouramis that at the time Briar was catching. It was hilarious. It's the first time they've ever really caught a fish, and Harvey has a lot of really pretty display tanks that are fully planted, overgrown, gorgeous, and he does dose with CO2. But he also has some really good lights that I'm kind of jealous. If I lived closer to him, I'd want to work there. But we were like, okay, well, you have a peaceful community tank. We'll see how he does. If he's very vicious, you can bring him back. And he's been doing really well. I watch him every day. I try and keep an eye, and sometimes I see him chase a pearl gourami or two, but usually he's just happy off doing his own thing. I'm hoping to eventually be able to train him to eat from my hand like I've done with my betta fish. Um, but things have gotten better. We had an ick outbreak. I had realized a little belatedly that I had caught a rummy nose with ick, and instead of quarantining him, I don't know. I'd never seen ick when it was still super mild, so usually by the time it was noticeable at the PetSmart tanks that I worked at, it was pretty bad. And usually we would have a lot of fish death, but this guy wasn't super bad. I thought that maybe he had like some oxygen bubbles on him from getting caught, but when we got home and I was releasing them into the tank, I saw him again. I was like, huh, that's weird. And then the next couple days, I saw a couple other fish, like some of my pork chop rasboras had the little white spots too. And I was like, oh, it's ick. So that's why I haven't done any footage of the tanks until today, because the big tank had ick. I noticed that the betta tank with the Ember Tetras, one of them, I must have cross contaminated because it had ick. So I've had to completely separate my tools and sanitize them in between working. And the big tank seems to finally be doing better. I used a mixture of medication and higher heat. The medication will be done for now because I haven't noticed any spots lately, but I'm going to leave the higher heat for a couple of weeks just to make sure that whatever life cycle is left, that the ick won't be able to reproduce anymore. Because what the higher heat does is just kind of forces their life cycle more quickly. We've also done a couple massive water changes to make sure the medication doesn't build up, and to get rid of any of the eggs and stuff that we could. Though it's a little hard to gravel vac considering the bottom of the tank is fully planted and there's a lot of debris and things that are down there. I kind of leave any decaying plant matter down there to just turn into its own thing. And I think that may also trigger some of the higher ammonia, which then I do regular water changes to get that back down. And the hope is that by the time that we end up being able to move into a house of our own, the bottom of that tank will be really well established, and we'll just drain it most of the way down, put the fish into buckets, and drive out to our future home without too much issue. But I'm really proud of my tank. It's the first big aquarium I've had. I've never had anything over 10 gallons before, and it is the first time I've really put the time and money into a setup that will be beautiful and provide real life plants. It gives Briar and I something to look at that isn't just our dark apartment. It's really nice. We both really like it. And I can never thank the people on the Planted Tank forum enough, because their research, Diana's advice, as hard it was to take because I had a specific image in mind, that all really helped. And with that, I'm going to end the video for today. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to talk about Inside Job. It's a new cartoon on Netflix, and Briar and I just watched all of it in like 2 chunks, and it is kind of awesome. New adult cartoon with an executive producer known as Alex Hirsch. So if nothing becomes more pressing on my mind, that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. But hope y'all have a good day. Stay hydrated, and I will see y'all later. Bye.